Daniel Hayes never expected a single message to shake his quiet evening. But when his phone lit up with Emma's name, he felt his breath pause. He had just returned from work, dropped his keys on the counter, and sat down with a cup of coffee, tired in the way only long weeks could make a man tired. The house was silent, his life calm but empty in a way he didn't always admit. Then the message appeared, short, direct, and impossible to ignore. "We should meet, all of us, tonight." He read it twice, then once more, feeling a rush of memories he kept buried for years. Emma wasn't someone who wrote messages like that. She was thoughtful with every word, careful with every moment. For her to send that meant something big, something unfinished, something that still lived between them even after life moved them in different directions. Daniel stood up and walked to the window, staring at the gray sky outside. Portland evenings had a way of making people nostalgic, and tonight the air felt heavier than usual. He didn't know what Emma meant by all of us, but he had a strong idea. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just one past story reopening. It was four. For chapters of his life he quietly closed but never fully walked away from. He felt a pull in his chest, part fear, part longing, part curiosity. He thought he had made peace with everything that happened in his past. But the truth was, he had only learned to hold the silence around it. Now the silence was breaking. He typed a reply and deleted it. Typed again, deleted again. Finally, he sent 3 words that felt heavier than they looked. Where and when. Her response came in seconds. The Evergreen Lodge, 8 p.m. Checked the time. It was almost 7:10. The lodge was 40 minutes away, sitting near the edge of a quiet pine forest outside the city. A place people went when they wanted peace or when they needed answers. He didn't bother overthinking it anymore. He grabbed his coat, ran a hand through his hair, and stepped out the door. Each step felt like he was walking deeper into a memory he both feared and missed. The drive was fast but thoughtful. Rain tapped lightly against the windshield, and the road curved through tall trees that felt like they were guarding old secrets. Daniel tried to steady his mind, but questions kept pushing through. Why now? Why together? Why tonight? He thought about each of the 4 women briefly. Not in a dramatic or dreamy way, but in the honest way a person remembers people who once shaped them. Emma, the gentle one with the soft laugh. Lily, whose wild spirit made him feel alive in moments he didn't expect. Grace, so kind and steady he never knew what he meant to her until it was too late. And Hannah, who entered his life during a messy chapter and brought unexpected peace. He hadn't loved all of them the same way, but each connection left a mark, some bright, some painful, all unforgettable. He told himself this wasn't a trap or a confrontation. The message didn't feel angry or dramatic. It felt sincere, maybe even necessary. Still, his pulse refused to slow. He arrived at the lodge just as the sky shifted to a deep blue. Soft yellow lights glowed through the wooden windows and smoke curled gently from the chimney. The place looked warm, safe, almost nostalgic. But that didn't calm the tightness in his chest. He parked the car, stepped out, and let the cold air hit his face. The moment he reached the door, he paused. His hand hovered above the handle. For a long second he stood still, hearing only the quiet wind and the thud of his own heartbeat. He wondered if walking into that room meant reopening old wounds or healing them. He wondered if this night was something fate planned or something he should have avoided. But he had already come this far. Turning back now would only make everything worse. He pushed the door open. Warm air and soft light welcomed him, along with a faint scent of pine wood and cinnamon. The lobby was quiet, almost too quiet. He took a few steps forward, hearing his shoes tap the wooden floor. Then he saw her. Emma stood near the stone fireplace, hands clasped in front of her, eyes lifting the moment she sensed him. She looked older, wiser, calmer than he remembered, and seeing her brought back a flood of emotions he once locked away. "Daniel," she said with a small smile. Not surprised, not nervous, just ready. He nodded, though his voice didn't come out right away. "Emma, you came," she said softly. It wasn't a question. It was relief. Your message was hard to ignore. She gave a short breath. Of a laugh, one he remembered well. "I know, I didn't want to worry you, but this night, it felt important. 'Cause of the others," he asked, finally speaking the thought sitting in his mind the entire drive. Emma nodded slowly. "They're here. All of them." Daniel's stomach tightened. Not in panic, but in the kind of emotional pressure that comes before a truth you've avoided for too long. He didn't know what he expected, but hearing her say it out loud made everything suddenly real. He looked around the room but saw no one else. Emma noticed and said, "They're waiting in the main hall." "I told them I'd greet you first." For a moment, silence hung between them. Not awkward, not heavy. Just full of history neither of them needed to explain. Emma stepped closer, her expression warm. "Daniel, tonight isn't about blame or regret. It's just about understanding. All of us grew in different ways, but the past still holds pieces that belong to all of us. We can't pretend they don't exist." Daniel swallowed, feeling both nervous and strangely grateful. "I don't know what to expect." "You don't have to," she said gently. "Just be here. Be here. That's enough." She motioned for him to follow her down the hallway. His steps felt heavier than they should have, yet lighter in a strange emotional way. Like he was walking toward closure. He never sought, but maybe always needed. When they reached the door to the main hall, Emma paused and placed her hand on the handle. "You ready?" she asked. Daniel took a slow breath. He didn't feel ready, not even close. But he nodded. Emma opened the door, and inside, waiting, silent, expectant, were the three other women who once carried pieces of Daniel's heart. The night had officially begun. The past was no longer past, and this was the moment he would never forget. When Daniel stepped into the main hall, the warmth of the lodge wrapped around him, but it did nothing to steady his heartbeat. The room was wide, softly lit by golden lamps, and quiet enough that he could hear the crackle of a fire from somewhere. Down the hall, three women stood spaced apart, like pieces of a story placed carefully on a stage. They turned when he entered, each of them wearing an expression he couldn't fully read. The first face he recognized instantly: Lily Marshall. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the same confident smile he remembered from years ago. Lily had always been a whirlwind, bold, adventurous, unpredictable. She once convinced him to drive 5 hours to see a sunrise from a cliff, just because she thought it would reset the soul. Seeing her here felt like watching a memory walk back into the present. Next to her stood Grace Turner, quiet as always. Grace never tried to take up space. She simply existed with a calm presence that made people trust her. She looked almost exactly the same: titty hair, gentle eyes, soft-colored clothes that matched her personality. But something in her posture today felt different, stronger, maybe. Or perhaps she had finally learned how to hold her own feelings without hiding them. And then there was Hannah Cole-Warm, steady, open-hearted Hannah. She had met Daniel during one of the toughest years of his life and somehow brought comfort just by being herself. She had a softness about her, but not a fragile one. More like a quiet strength that people only noticed when they needed it most. Seeing her again brought a small ache to Daniel's chest. The kind that comes from remembering kindness you didn't know how to appreciate at the time. None of them looked angry. None of them looked upset. But they all looked expectant. Emma closed the door behind them and walked to stand beside the others. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence wasn't sharp or uncomfortable. It felt like everyone was trying to understand how to take the first step in a fragile moment. Lily finally broke the silence. "You made it," she said, giving Daniel a half smile that held a mix of nostalgia and humor. "I wasn't sure you'd walk through that door." Daniel exhaled. "I wasn't sure either." Grace stepped closer, speaking softly. Thank you for coming. This wasn't easy for any of us to plan, but felt it was time. Time for what? Daniel asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Hannah answered, for clarity, for peace. For the things we never said, but maybe should. Have. Daniel nodded, though he wasn't sure he understood yet. I'm here. I'm listening. Emma motioned for everyone to sit around the circular wooden table in the center of the room. It felt symbolic, no one in front, no one behind, everyone equal. Daniel took a seat, his hands resting on the table, trying not to show the nervous energy buzzing through him. Lily leaned forward slightly. Let's be honest from the start. None of us are here to reopen the past or blame you. We've grown, we're different people now, Grace added gently. But the past didn't end cleanly for any of us. We all walked away with thoughts we never said out loud. We aren't here to relive old feelings. We're here to acknowledge them. Emma looked at Daniel, her eyes calm and sincere. We realized something recently. There was a time when each of us cared about you in ways we didn't fully understand. And we never talked about how all those stories overlapped or how they ended without real closure. Daniel's heartbeat quickened again. He wasn't overwhelmed, just taken by surprise at how open they were being. These were women who used to hold their emotions close, and now they were speaking with a kind of honesty he didn't expect. Lily leaned back, studying him. Let's start simple. You were different with each of us, not in a bad way, in a human way. We all saw different sides of you. And we all saw different sides of ourselves when we were with you, Grace added, her voice steady but quiet. Hannah said, we aren't comparing. We aren't competing. We just want to understand, and we want you to understand us too. Daniel swallowed. I never wanted to hurt any of you. We know, Emma said gently. This isn't about hurt. Lily smirked. If it were about hurt, I'd have shown up with dramatic music and a speech. Daniel couldn't help but laugh. Softly, the tension easing for a moment. Grace smiled at the light moment before speaking again. The truth is, Daniel, each of us walked away with something unfinished, something unspoken. Not because you did anything wrong, but because life moved us in directions we couldn't control. Hannah's eyes softened. And tonight, we want to finish those sentences? Daniel felt his breath catch. All of them. At once. Emma shook her head. One at a time. But before we do that, we needed you to see us together. To understand this isn't a confrontation. It's a conversation. Lily's gaze sharpened slightly. We didn't gather to make you choose between us. That's not the story. It's about understanding how all our paths crossed in ways that shaped us, Grace said. And maybe shaped you too, Hannah added gently. Daniel felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not regret. Something deeper, like a door opening inside his chest. These women weren't here to demand anything. They weren't looking for apologies or explanations. They were looking for closure, understanding, connection, things that were too mature for drama and too honest for bitterness. He looked at each of them, seeing not the past versions he once knew, but the women they had become stronger, wiser, more complete. Emma folded her hands on the table. Tonight matters because we've all carried pieces of the same story, but no one ever put the full picture together. We want to do that now, for ourselves and for you. Daniel nodded slowly. I don't know what I can give you, but I'm here. And I want to understand too. Lily smiled. Good, because we're about to tell you everything, Grace added, and we're ready to hear your side too. Hannah said softly, just be honest. That's all any of us want. Emma looked around the table, then back at Daniel. Each of us will speak, one by one, about what we felt, about what we learned, about what we never said. Daniel's chest tightened not with fear now, but with the weight of how real this moment was. Emma took a slow breath. Let's begin. And with that, the night shifted quietly, powerfully, completely into a conversation that would shape everything that came next. The room felt different the moment Emma said, "Let's begin." It wasn't heavy or tense, just honest. Everyone sat still, listening for the first voice to rise. The fire crackled softly in the background, giving the moment a quiet strength. Daniel sat with his hands clasped, unsure which story would come first. But knowing all of them mattered, Emma took a breath and began. "Daniel," she said gently, "you were my first real love. I didn't know how to handle feelings that strong. I was young, unsure of myself, and afraid of getting hurt. I didn't leave because of you. I left because I didn't know how to stay." Her voice didn't tremble. It was warm and clear, filled with memories that finally had space to breathe. Daniel felt a small ache in his chest. Not painful, but nostalgic. "You were good to me," Emma continued. "You were patient. You tried hard. But back then, I didn't know how to give what I was receiving. I was scared to trust someone that much." Daniel lowered his gaze for a moment, absorbing her words. He had always wondered why things ended so quietly between them. Now the truth sat on the table like something they could finally touch. Emma smiled softly. "I don't regret loving you. I regret not understanding myself sooner." Before Daniel could answer, Lily leaned forward, her elbows on the table, ready to speak next. She didn't wait for anyone's permission. "My turn," she said, her tone familiar, bold, but sincere. "Daniel, you were the only guy who ever made me think I could stay in one place. That freaked me out." She laughed lightly, the way she always did when she said something vulnerable, and tried to cover it with humor. "I liked you more than I expected, maybe more than I should have. But I wasn't built for slow, quiet love back then. I wanted adventure, movement, constant excitement. And you? You were steady, solid, reliable, good." She paused, her expression softening. "I didn't know how to accept something stable, so I ran." Daniel looked up at her, and for the first time that night, Lily's smile dropped into something honest, something raw. "You didn't do anything wrong," she added. "I just didn't know how to stand still." Grace, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but her words carried weight. "You two had love stories," she said, folding her hands gently. "Mine was different." She looked at Daniel, and her eyes held a sadness that wasn't painful anymore, just real. "I loved you in silence," Grace said. "You never knew. I never told you. You were my closest friend, and I didn't want to destroy what we had." Daniel felt his breath catch. Grace had always been kind, always supportive, always nearby. He had sensed some things sometimes, but he never allowed himself to assume. "You made me feel seen," she continued. "You listened. You cared. You brought light into my life during a time when I felt invisible." Her voice softened even further. "But you were falling for someone else, and I didn't want to complicate anything, so I stayed quiet." She gave a small, brave smile. "I don't regret loving you. I just regret not believing that I deserved to say it." Daniel wanted to respond, but the weight of Grace's confession sat so deeply inside him that words felt small. Before he could try, Kama spoke calm, steady, the way she always had been. "My story was simple," she said. "You walked into my life when everything felt heavy. My job was overwhelming. My family was scattered across states, and I felt like I was holding up the world alone." Her eyes softened, glowing with a warmth that made Daniel's chest tighten. "You didn't fix anything," Hannah continued. "You didn't solve my problems, but you made the days easier." She smiled gently. "I didn't fall for you because of one moment. It happened little by little, with your kindness, your humor, the way you always helped without asking to be praised." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He remembered that time, how their connection had grown quietly, like something fragile becoming steady. "But I knew you weren't ready," Hannah said. "Honestly, your heart was still tangled in other stories, and I didn't want to be another complication in your life. Oh, I stepped back." The room fell silent again, but now it wasn't the silence of uncertainty. It was the silence of truths finally finding their place. Daniel looked at all four women, overwhelmed but grateful. "I never meant to hurt any of you," he said quietly. "I didn't realize how much those moments meant. I didn't know how deeply any of you cared." Emma shook her head. "We're not here for apologies. We're here because we never spoke these truths when they mattered." "We're not asking for anything," Lily said, her voice firm but warm. "We just want you to understand." Grace nodded. "And maybe to understand ourselves, too." Hannah added softly, "Tonight isn't about the past controlling us, it's about setting it free." Daniel took a deep breath. "If I missed signs or feelings or chances to say the right things, sorry. Not because I feel guilty, but because you all deserved honesty." "No one is blaming you," Emma said gently. Lily nodded. "We all grew from those stories." Grace smiled. "We all became better versions of ourselves." Hannah's eyes glowed. "We're here because we chose peace, not bitterness." Daniel felt something shift inside him, like pressure releasing from a tight space. For years he carried confusion about his past, wondering if he had made the right decisions, wondering why certain connections ended without proper explanation. Now the answers sat around him, alive and willing to be shared. Emma looked at him with calm certainty. "The past doesn't have to be painful to be meaningful. We loved differently, at different times and for different reasons. Tonight is about accepting that." Lily added, "An understanding that love doesn't always end with anger. Sometimes it ends with growth." Grace whispered, "And memories we can treasure." Hannah finished, "And people we can still care about." In a different way, Daniel breathed out slowly. "Thank you for telling me all this." Emma smiled. "We're not done yet." Lily smirked. "Not even close." Grace nodded. "There's still more to say." Hannah looked at Daniel with a soft glow. "And a moment we planned together. Something we want to share with you." Daniel looked at them, confused but curious. "What moment?" he asked. Emma exchanged a look with the others. "You'll see," she said. And with that, the night moved into its most powerful moment yet, one Daniel never saw coming. The room felt warmer now, filled with honesty instead of silence. Daniel watched the four women who once shaped pieces of his life, and for the first time he felt completely present. No confusion, no fear, just clarity slowly forming. Emma gave a small nod to the others, a signal Daniel didn't understand yet. Lily stood up first. "Come with us," she said simply. The four women didn't look nervous. It looked certain, like whatever was about to happen had been carefully thought out. Daniel rose from his chair, unsure but trusting their calmness. Emma guided him toward a side door he hadn't noticed before, one that led deeper into the lodge. The hallway was lined with warm lights, the kind that made everything feel softer, safer. As they walked, Grace spoke quietly beside him. "This night isn't about romance, not in the way the past was. Tonight is about closure and celebration." "Celebration?" Daniel asked. Hannah smiled gently. "Yes, not of what happened, but of what we survived, what we learned, what we grew into." They reached another room, a smaller lounge with tall windows showing a calm forest outside. The snow had started falling lightly, catching the glow from the lodge lights. A fire burned in the fireplace, casting soft shadows on the wooden walls. It felt peaceful, intimate, but not heavy. Lily motioned for Daniel to sit on the long sofa. The four of them settled around him, not crowding, not pressing, just forming a loose circle that felt safe. A quiet moment passed, and then Emma spoke first, as she often did when something mattered deeply. "Daniel," she said softly, "tonight isn't about choosing someone. It's not about fixing the past or rewriting it. It's about honoring it." Daniel frowned gently. "Honoring it? How?" Lily answered with her usual bold simplicity. by finally giving space to everything we never said and everything we outgrew. Grace continued, "We didn't come here to reopen old feelings. We came to close the book together, not separately." Hannah's eyes were warm. We've all healed in our own ways. But something was still unfinished. Not with love, just with understanding. Daniel listened, feeling something settle inside him. There were no accusations here, no hidden motives. Just for people searching for emotional peace and offering. Him, the same. Emma stood and walked to the small side table. She picked up a glass container filled with folded papers. Daniel hadn't noticed it before. She brought it to the group and placed it in the center. "This," she said, "is what we brought tonight. Memories, thoughts, questions we asked ourselves at different times. Things we learned, things we let go of." She met his eyes. "And things we wish we could have said back then." Lily grinned. "And don't worry, none of it is dramatic. We promised each other we'd be honest, not theatrical." Grace smiled softly. "We agreed that each of us would read one paper aloud. Not to relive old emotions, but to release them." Anna added, "And after that, you can say whatever you want, or nothing at all. You don't owe us answers, just presence." Emma reached into the container and pulled out the first folded paper. She opened it gently and read, "I learned that love can be gentle and still be overwhelming. I learned that walking away doesn't erase the beauty of what once was." She folded the paper again, placed it aside, and sat down. Daniel felt warmth. Spread through him, not romantic warmth, but human warmth. Gratitude. Lily reached next. She opened her paper without hesitation. "I learned that running from stability didn't make me free. It made me tired. And the people who offered steadiness weren't holding me back. They were trying to help me grow." She tossed the paper lightly onto the table as if releasing a bird. Grace reached quietly for the next one. Her hands trembled. A little, not from fear, but from the emotion of letting something go. "I learned that silence is not kindness. That unspoken feelings can weigh as much as spoken ones. And that I deserved to take up space too." She exhaled slowly, setting the paper down with care. Finally, Hannah took hers. She opened it and smiled, almost sadly, as she read, "I learned that timing is its own kind of fate. That good people can miss each other not because of flaws, but because life was asking for growth first." When Hannah placed her paper down, the room felt full, not of tension, but of truth. 4 stories. For lessons, for hearts that had once connected to Daniel in different ways. Now, sitting together in closure, Emma looked at Daniel. "Your turn," she said. "Not to explain yourself. Just to share something, anything you feel tonight." Daniel didn't rush. He let the warmth of the fire settle his thoughts. The 4 of them watched impatiently, not expecting perfection. Only honesty. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but clear. "I learned that I was afraid of hurting people, so I stayed quiet, too quiet. I didn't know how to express what I felt or what I needed. And I never imagined any of you saw me the way you say you did." The women listened silently. Daniel continued, "I grew, slowly, awkwardly, sometimes painfully. But seeing all of you tonight makes me realize something I never understood before." He looked at each of them, one by one. "You all shaped me, not by loving me or leaving me or waiting for me, but by being exactly who you were." Emma smiled warmly. Lily smirked with soft pride. Grace's eyes shimmered. Hannah's expression glowed with quiet peace. Daniel took a breath. "And I'm grateful, truly." Silence followed, but this time it felt like the final note of a beautiful song, complete, satisfying, whole. Emma stood first. "Then we've done what we came here to do." Lily stretched her arms. Finally, closure without chaos. Grace laughed softly. "It only took years." Hannah touched Daniel's arm gently. "This night was for all of us." They all rose, together. The snow outside fell gently, dusting the pines in soft white. Daniel walked with them toward the front door of the lodge, feeling lighter than he had in years. At the entrance, the four women stopped. Emma spoke for the group. "One last thing, Daniel." He turned, curious. Emma smiled. This night wasn't about the past. It was about letting it go together. Lily nodded. "We cared for you then," Grace added. "We care for you now," Hannah finished, "and we'll care for you in the future, just differently." Daniel felt emotion rise in his chest, deep, warm, unforgettable dot as they stepped out into the snowy night. Daniel knew with absolute clarity this was a night he would never forget. Not because he once loved four women, but because, for the first time, all four stories finally found peace.